We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Rabbi Chernitsky, Director of Chabad of Newfoundland, the People's Rabbi. We're here tonight again. Last week we didn't have a class because of Purim. So we're continuing with the Jewish wealth secret, Tzedakah Unleashed. If you didn't get it yet, the secret is giving Tzedakah. That's what makes a person wealthy, with Hashem's help and mercy. So let's get straight into it. We are by subsection Yud Beis, number 12. Let's continue inside the text. Kamos ve'echos, quantity and quality. The Gemara moves pluksa bepirish hapasuk v'chesed lo'im chatas. Okay, we'll skip this one. Okay, number 13. Besever panim yafis, with a good countenance. B'mitzvahs hatzedakah and the mitzvah tzedakah negia beikar b'mais b'poel. What's mainly relevant is the action. B'lashon chasal, in the words of the sages, haisa sela tzure v'kenafav. A person had a coin, a sela was a small coin, was tied, bound in his robe, the corner of his garment. V'nafla himeno, and it fell from him. Umatzoy anim isparnes bo. And a poor person found that he used to sustain himself. So Hashem, the Almighty God, gives him a blessing. The person that the coin fell from him, right? Meaning to say, even though even though the person didn't have in mind, didn't have the intent to give tzedakah, nevertheless, since in actuality the poor person was supported, that's considered as a fulfillment of the mitzvah of tzedakah. So it's not important your intent. What is important is actuality. Did the poor person get money? Yes or no? Amnam, however, together with this, it's not just all about action. There's also a concept to give tzedakah with a happy face, with a happy countenance. It's not just about giving, it's also about giving with a happy face. Okay, we're reading a quote here from the Rambam, I believe, from Maimonides, yeah. If a person gives money to the poor, but with a bad face, and his face is buried in the ground, so to speak, even if the amount he's giving is 1,000 gold coins, he lost his merit completely, he ruined it. Rather, how should he give? With a happy face, with joy. And he speaks also to the poor person words of comfort and consolation. As we find, in regards to honoring a father, that it says in Jewish law, that there's two kinds of people. It could be a person that feeds his father the most delicious, precious foods, but that takes him away from the world because he does it in a not nice way. And there's a person who makes his father work a bit for the food, and that brings he makes his father work, brings the son to the life of the world to come, because he does it in a respectful way, and that's what he could afford. Meaning to say, even a person who feeds his father fattened, important ducks or whatever, birds, this person is punished because he shows he's stingy. He doesn't really want to do it. He's like taking out a chunk out of his heart when he feeds his father these delicious foods. On the other hand, there's another kind of person. It's a person who has his father grinding at the mill, melacha kasha, which is a difficult type of work. But nevertheless, maybe this brings the son to the life of the world to come. He's rewarded. Why? Because he's honoring his father with good things, with comfort. Because the way he treats his father is a menschlich way, it's a nice way. So even though he has to make his father work for whatever reason, he does it in a menschlich way, just a proper humane way. So this is what we have here. On the one hand, we said the main thing is action, that the poor person should be sustained from the tzedakah. On the other hand, there is also a concept to give it with a happy face, not just throw the money at him or like, here's the money, get out of here. Even if you don't say those words, but that's the idea that you're expressing with your actions, this is not the appropriate thing. Mechat Gis, on the one hand, we said that what's relevant is the actual, result. But we can say at the same time, in this action, you need to put in your whole being, your whole kishkas, your whole insight. How do you put your whole self into the giving of tzedakah? By giving it tzedakah with a happy face. Not just that, but more. That the sages said, if you give a pruta was the smallest coin in terms of the Talmud and the Mishnah. If you give a pruta to a poor person, you get blessed with 6 blessings. And if you appease a poor person just with your words, you get blessed with 11 blessings. Yud Aleph. Yeah. So what do you see? You see that when you speak to him in a nice way, that has a lot more value, right? 6 and 11. You give him money, you get 6 blessings. You comfort him, you speak to him in a nice way, you get 11. In particular, the number 11 is more than number 10, right? 10 represents certain completion, right? 10 itself is completion. Right? It's known that the Bartenura, from Bartenura, from Italy, a famous rabbi who wrote an explanation on the Mishnah, has some writings on the Chumash. He says that the number 10 really includes all of the numbers within it. Also, we find specifically with 10, we have the completion that comes with a minyan. A minyan is a quorum of 10 Jewish men above the age of 13 or above. Then you have the Shekhinah, the divine presence. God says, I'll be sanctified amongst the Jewish people. Eda Kadosh is called a holy congregation, right? That's how we know. How do we know that a minyan is 10 men? Because the spies that Moses sent to spy the land, yes, in the book of Numbers, Pashav Shlach, how many did he send? He sent 12. But when Moses speaks about the bad spies, the spies that came back with a bad report, there's only 10, right? It's the 12 minus Joshua and Caleb, Yeshua and Caleb. So that's 10. So the Torah used the word Ada, so which means a congregation, and that's 10. So then when the verse says Nikdashti, right, and it's God says I will be sanctified with the Ada, so we know that for God, for the divine presence to be there, we need also an Ada. So Ada is 10 men. That's what it needs to be. We'll call life, but at any rate, as far as we're concerned, for our context, 10 represents completion. And now you understand how great 11 is. 11 is infinitely higher, which, by the way, is similar to this week's Parsha. Maybe we'll touch upon it at the end of the class. Parsha Shmini. So there's 10, that's already completion, wholesomeness. Then there's 11. This is accomplished not just by actually giving the tzedakah, by putting your whole being into the giving of tzedakah. Somebody who appeases the poor person with his words, he gets 11 blessings. So again, we said that there's the giving, and that's the main thing. Always we say Hamaise Hua Ikar. This is from Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers. Action is paramount. You could sit your whole day at home and meditate about how important it is to help the refugees in Ukraine, how important it is to help poor people. That means absolutely nothing. You didn't get the mitzvah and you didn't do anything. But if you give the poor person a check for $1 million, if you give him a check for 1 cent, and you're upset, they just throw it at him, you have the mitzvah tzedakah. You did the mitzvah. However, we just saw that it's also important to do with a happy face. It's not paramount. It doesn't take away from the mitzvah, at least at the most basic level. We'll see later on if giving with a happy face or not takes away from the mitzvah. But at the end of the day, you have the mitzvah, whether you took away part of it or not. You have the mitzvah just by giving. But we said when you give with a happy face, or when you comfort the poor person, you give him words of comfort, of that it's okay, you go through it, then you're blessed with 11 blessings. 10 is completion, and 11 is way, way more. Let's continue. Which is one. Okay, this is from a different talk. Okay, you see there's a star. This is from a different piece, but on the same topic. So this is also one explanation why giving tzedakah ideally is with a happy face. Because seemingly, since the main point of tzedakah is to give life to the poor person and his family. If so. Who cares that you're doing with a happy face? Why is that relevant? So we understand if you say don't give with an angry face. Move on a level of passion. We understand that simply. Because that has to do with embarrassing the other person, which is forbidden, right? Talmud says a person should jump into a fiery furnace instead of embarrassing someone else in public. Right, as we learned from Judah and Tamar, correct? That Tamar refused to call out Judah, saying that the babies are from Judah. Right? So we see it's better to be thrown to a fiery furnace than to embarrass somebody else. Anyway, side point. So not to give with an angry face, we understand, because you should not embarrass the poor person. But why do you have to give with a happy face? Why? Just give with an average, default face, status quo. Or the explanation to that is, when you give with a happy face, it's recognizable. You're emphasizing the concept of unity. Meaning, that the giver also feels that he is receiving from the poor person. Remember, we saw this before. Remember that we said that more than the giver is giving, he's also receiving, right? We said that tzedakah, you need another person to be there, right? You can't give tzedakah when you're alone, and that bridges the gap between the wealthy guy and the poor person. When you give with a happy face, this brings out the concept of unity, because you feel that you're receiving from the poor person. So you're not like the guy that's aloof, this rich guy that's giving to somebody who's way below him in a different world, different league. No, you are getting from the poor person. To the contrary, and again, this is a quote from the Talmud, that more than the giver, that's for the poor person, that's for the one that's giving. Sheken, because indeed, if it was not for the poor person, the Haislev Shars the mitzvah tzedakah, you would not have the possibility to fulfill the mitzvah tzedakah. So you need to ask yourself, who's the giver and who's the receiver? Okay, yeah, the next part is long. We're gonna have to leave for next class. We've been doing this short snippets, so it's not to get everybody overwhelmed with too much text, but we packed a lot of punch. So we learned today is that the main thing is always to give, but ideally you should be given with a happy face. That brings out the concept of unity, that you are not aloof, higher than the receiver, but you're really one and together, because he's also giving to you. If it wasn't for him, you couldn't do the mitzvah tzedakah. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Again, I'm Rabbi Chernitsky, Director of Chabad Newfoundland. Next Monday is to continue with the Tanya class, 9 a.m., Kabbalah of the Soul. We're in the middle of chapter 5 of the Tanya. Next Wednesday, God willing, same time, 8:30 p.m. NST, or NDT, whatever it is now. We're continuing with NDT. We're continuing with the Jewish Wealth Secret, Tzedakah Unleashed. Be there. Take care.